welcome to the latest episode of the South Tip Arts Podcast. First of all, happy 2022 everybody, welcome to the new year. This year at the Arts Centre we have a jam-packed programme coming up which we will be sharing with you in the very near future. But our first exhibition of 2022 is by our current artist in residence for the year, John Kennedy, who will be well known to many people locally. John's exhibition Edgelands is a body of work specially created for this residency, which is supported by Tipperary County Arts Office, and we thank them for their support in this project. Edgelands opens officially today, the 14th of January, and runs until the 19th of February. I had the opportunity to catch up with John for a chat this week about the making of Edgelands and to take a tour around Edgelands with him. John Kennedy, you're very welcome to South Tip Arts Centre. Your exhibition Edgelands is just installed. We've just been glowing over how easy it was and how the show is open actually a day earlier than scheduled. So it's open now and will run until the 19th of February. You are our artist in residence for 2022, yep. So congratulations on that.
Thanks very much.
John, you're about my own vintage. You're slightly just a little bit ahead of me, but I've been kind of following your journey, shall we say, for a long time, because we kind of probably started out in the one place, which was STAC.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Maureen.
Thanks to Maureen.
Back in the day. And you ended up taking yourself away to Crawford after that.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's where you started out.
That's where I started out, yeah. I suppose one thing I didn't have back then was the dedication I suppose I have now. Whereas back in the Crawford days it was all about the college life and I was all over the place, I suppose, making work. And
it was a great time though. I mean, I think that time, that 90s sort of time, was a great time.
It was brilliant back on it now. Absolutely.
We actually didn't realise how much fun we were probably having at the time. No. But after that then, when you left Crawford, is it fair to say that maybe reality kind of kicked in, real life, that you needed to start generating a sensible sort of an income at that point?
Absolutely, yeah. I think. I stayed in Cork after college, and I did join the Backwater Artists Group. Again, I don't think it was with full dedication. I think the financial side of it became an issue, you know what I mean? And I veered off, eventually moving back to Clonmel, where I had to get work basically. So now I do have a day job. I do work as... I think that's what's nice actually about your story is it's because so many people's story is that, like, you know, when you have a family and stuff, it becomes, you sort of have to park your passion sometimes to kind of, you know, do what needs to be done. Yeah. So I think it's lovely to hear, you know, that the fact that you've been able to kind of come back around into it and build your way back up into it again, because even when you took up the painting again, like, that's a good number of years ago now. But yeah, it's about 9 or 10, I think.
Yeah, and I kind of remember that too, because I was working in a framing shop at the time with you.
That's right, I remember you. Yeah.
And I kind of remember the kind of tentativeness at that point of you trying to kind of build it back into your life again.
It was like I really started back at grassroots, you know. I would have been used to a studio environment and everything, but like I literally was in the back garden. Toying with things, like, and if it was raining then I didn't paint, you know, and it was obviously in the summer months and whatever, and it just got more and more. It built up. I was kindly given a studio in town when I was really, and I'm just trying to think when that was, about 2013, 2014 maybe, and I had a studio, a top floor of a shop in town, actually in Gladstone Street here. I got that studio and I had it for about 12 months, and it got me going into a practice, but I can't say I was producing decent work. It actually surprised me how long it took to build up a theme. I was really just playing with materials, etc., etc. And I don't love convention when it comes to painting, you know what I mean? So I was playing around with materials, and I kind of set formulas for myself that I still apply now, you know. But
I think your work is quite recognisable now.
Yeah,
you know, like it's really getting its own unique sort of look to it, which is great.
Yeah, and it takes work to get there, I suppose, you know. And then you wonder, am I a bit samey here? Am I a bit samey there? Or like that, you know, do you accidentally plagiarise something here, or you know? But at this point I'm kind of confident to call it my own.
Yeah. I was mentioning to you there just before we started that the first couple of people who have come in to view this is not even officially open, but people have seen it through the window and been drawn in, which is brilliant because that doesn't always happen. So it's got impact from outside the window, which is great for us. But everyone who's come in has kind of said, oh, it's like sort of being on a journey. You feel like you're part of the journey. Like there's a bit of a story going on around the room. Or I was here yesterday evening just before I went home and I was looking at them all, and what popped into my head was, and I don't know if this will make any sense to you, but I could hear diamonds on my windshield in my head. You know, that sort of twangy, that bass kind of thinking, whoa, it feels like a really long distance commute or
absolutely,
but also the stuff that might go through your head on a long distance commute. We really feel like you're there with you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think, you know, when I started the residency, I really wanted, I just got it into my head straight away to make one body of work.
Yeah.
Now, at the start, I mean, it wasn't to be a journey, but it very much turned into a journey exhibition, I guess, because there's obviously roads and trucks and the road signs and things. But it was definitely about the Edgelands, the places that people don't find. We don't think about them as we pass the big signs on the road or whatever, you know what I mean? And in certain lights and in certain days, these are like, some road signs can be like monoliths, you know, they're just immense looking. And as I started to think about the show at the end of the residency, that's what really grabbed me, you know? And I have this, I have fascination with old Soviet imagery, but I didn't really want to put that stamp. And it's funny, somebody was in my studio last week, a friend of mine, and he just said, you really love the American landscape. And I made everything with Russia in mind, if you know what I mean. But that's it. I always want to provide a bit of a narrative, but not leave it enough open that people draw their own conclusions from it.
I think the scenes are sort of like abstract in a way enough that they could be anywhere in one way, like, and I think everyone's going to kind of see something different in them. Like I mentioned, somebody came in earlier on and said, oh my God, I was in Canada, and it's like
there you
Canada.
go, Canada, another place.
But it's that.
I am fascinated by those really remote places. Like, and I mean, my show last year, group show in the Source. I was looking at those polar ice stations, and I did a couple of years of this polar ice station, you know, and it's just the thoughts of those kind of places, really extreme environments, and you go into this little port cabin or whatever, and there's this sense of warmth or home that you mightn't even experience, you know, in normal daily life. Things you don't go from extreme to extreme. And I love that kind of sense of a homely feeling, even though it's nowhere, you know.
The fact that I said to you there a few minutes ago that I kind of music in my head while I was looking at them. Is music a big factor?
Hugely. And
do you listen to music while you work?
Yeah, nearly always. And I could be listening to podcasts, and they can be art podcasts, big football fan, listen to football stuff. I definitely listen to music. I listen to a lot of, I would say, alternative music, but bands, you know, instrumental bands I really love. Like Godspeed You Black Emperor, and they would be hugely inspirational in what I make. This remoteness, sense of remoteness comes out of it. And definitely with the music on in the background, I just, you know, it definitely influences what I'm making and the way I think about art. I've always been I've kind of hated a show-off guitar solo in a song. I like things to be subtle, and I think I try to do that. I don't want, don't want to make the Mona Lisa every time I paint, if you know what I mean. Sometimes the painting is of an image, but my favourite piece of it is a drip, or where the lumpy paint is, or whatever, you know what I mean. They're the golden nuggets, I think, rather than... And
they're the bits maybe that you take forward. Would you try and replicate maybe that again in the next thing when you go forward?
I actually go as far as, I suppose, I'd take note of if there's a successful surface, so the layering of the paint before I even paint an image on the surface. If there's something I regard as a success, I go back and write down the steps. Like a recipe sometimes for myself, you know. I suppose I'd say now if anybody else read it, they mightn't even understand the recipe.
Well, it's good that you can actually get back to a formula of how you did it, because
from years of making mistakes.
You get somewhere and you're like, oh my God, I could never replicate that again. Like, it's good that, you know, you're able to do that. Just in terms of kind of having the kind of double life, so to speak, as, you know, that you've got your kind of engineer head, and then Do you find that one informs the other a bit, or are they completely separate things?
Yeah, it was funny when we were hanging the show yesterday. Helena and Tim were making a comment. There's your engineering brain coming in, and it got me thinking about it. I mean, I don't know it switches on or switches off. You know what I mean? I don't know that I'm swapping sides or whatever, but definitely there's an engineering aspect to it, and I think that comes into how I remember how the formula for mixing paints that don't react well together. You know what I mean? Or like I'd use water-based with oil-based. And then it's in the timing. I could say leave for 15 minutes to get a certain type of beading on the surface, or you know what I mean? And then I might say leave for 2 hours. And I might go into the house and make tea or make a cup of coffee. I say, I'm on a timing thing here, you know what I mean? So I'll run back out and do the next step, the next layer. So I definitely there must be an aspect of And then in the day job, I mean, I probably specifically focus on labeling. So there's that kind of graphic-y side to it anyway. I'm not like working on, I'm not a guy who can look into the engine of a car and know what's wrong, you know?
Obviously you're doing both pretty successfully, so like you can manage to kind of fit both into a day. It's not something many people can. It's obviously a lot of dedication, because you know, when you come home from work at the end of the day, or you've done your 10-12 hours shifts or whatever, it's hard to kind of get up and go at it again. Maybe sometimes
it would be
no
very
matter
easy
how
to
much
hit the couch.
you love it, you know.
My work, my artwork hours are, if I'm not in the studio, I'd like to be early. I'd like to be earlier most evenings, but you know, you have a day, you've done a day's work or whatever. It's if I'm not in there by 9 o'clock, I'm starting to torture myself. You know what I mean? And then I work through till 12:30,
and
1 o'clock.
And you go in there every single day, more or less. That's
absolutely
some serious dedication, like.
And it's, I can't believe we're talking about me in that context, because I wasn't that way, you know what I mean? I wasn't dedicated like that. But just it's age, I guess. It's as I'm getting older,
well, I suppose, you know, as you kind of like that, you've kind of been plugging away and building up the style, and really now the kind of momentum is really starting to build with you, I think, and you really are starting to develop that like really recognisable style and everything. It's brilliant.
And I almost worried with the show just, you know, hitting the ground now. I can take a break now, and I don't know if I really want to take a break, you know. I just want to kind of keep on painting,
going,
you know.
Should we go and have a look at some of the works? So maybe, John, we'll go through a couple of your favourites.
I'm trying to think. We're down at the end of the room here. I called it Passive Attack, and I suppose this really was the first of this narrative, the one that I really got into. An actual scene, I suppose, if you're going back 2 years, it was an object in just a blank background, or a worked surface background. And then you might have a piece of machinery or a crane or something like that.
So you start with the block of the object, and then
well, the object, if you look at it here, I build up my layers, and then the underpainting then of, you know, you have a kind of it's a Prussian blue or whatever on the sign. I didn't paint an actual sign onto this. It's just a negative space.
Oh, okay, actually, now that I'm looking at it.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I can see
and that became something to play with then, you know what I mean, for the rest of the exhibition. And it's not something I practiced prior to this, or prior to the residency even, you know. So I'm playing with negative space, and actually then it's a proper landscape, you know what I mean? It's not just... somebody said it, another friend said it to me, you're a landscape painter, you know. I'm like, all right.
No, I'm not.
Another one I like is again, it's early from the body of work, and I suppose there's less pressure on then to put out a show, you know. And again, it's playing with the negative space, you know what I mean?
It's interesting that from a distance there's a kind of a darkness to them, but I think the closer you get to them, the more you look at them, the more colour starts to come out. And with the lights, like we were kind of looking at them all day in daylight and natural light yesterday before they were finished, and the minute the lights went on them, it was like, wow, all these colours. You know?
They're twilight paintings, you know. That and when they're in the studio is quite small, and you know, you finish a piece, you put it against the wall, you finish the next piece, put it against the wall, and even myself, it got into my head: are they all the same colour? But they're not. There's no two actually the same colours, you know.
Absolutely not. And you know what I love about them is whatever way you've captured the lights, even the headlights on the lorries and these street lights, there's a real glow to them.
Yeah.
Like that truck over there, like those lights actually really look like they're on.
Absolutely. And actually looking at that here from a distance in the gallery, it's actually, and lights are something like, I mean, if anybody knows my earlier work, lights were a big thing. You know what I mean? It was lights hanging from the ceiling, and, you know, I was very much into it. And then I kind of started painting these landscapes, and the light was almost gone. So I was kind of thinking to myself, how do I bring it back into the painting? The truck lights or whatever, you know, became the vehicle. Oh, excuse the pun for that.
And the other thing is, like, there's really exquisite surfaces on these really raised sort of texture on them.
It's almost like the image in the painting is almost secondary to the surface. It's painted on, you know. Yeah. And somebody said, I met them in the gallery yesterday, and they said, "Are you using this kind of bumpy paper?" It's not. Every one of these is just on oil primed linen, you know. So it's the surface is all my own work, you know. And it's this beading, like say this one with the.
It's all paint. There's no wax involved.
No wax. Wow. No, I've never had success with wax. Yeah, you know. So and this beading in this one, even though like it's obviously sitting in a vehicle, you know,
this
looking
one
out.
Is called The Secret, and this is the one that you've chosen to use for your poster.
Yeah.
So people will have seen this image by the time the podcast comes out. So it's as if you're sitting in a vehicle, looking through the windscreen.
Yeah.
And I love this one.
And it's almost incidental that the beading effect on the painting it looks like, you know, the way water beads on a window.
On a window,
you know?
it really does.
If I'm looking at photography, I love a lot of photographers, you know, that they shoot through a window like that, you know what I mean? You get this blurred image rather than a real self-explanatory image, you know. Exactly. But then again, it doesn't really, if there was actual wipers, you wouldn't have the beading, you know.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah,
but it still, it kind of adds, it gives it a bit of narrative again, you know.
It really does, and it sort of brings you part of that whole idea of being on the journey. And they all like this one, I feel like I'm in a car also, but I'm looking at the back of the vehicle in front of me. And
it's a very, like this one for me is a very, if I'm driving, that's a very uncomfortable place to be. You're either overtaking
and
you're being splashed, and suddenly the intensity of the splash is worse, you know.
And it really has that sort of dirty old evening kind of.
The one we're talking about there, just you could feel the sky. So basically, it's when the sky comes, everything becomes one. You know, you're driving into this white.
This one here I like an awful lot. It's probably one of the largest. Is it the largest?
There's two that are this size. Yeah, okay, the big interior, the window one. This one is called the Road to Norilsk. Mm-hmm. So during the time. As I do a lot of internet research, and I just watch random YouTube videos. And again, this old Soviet Union came into mind. So there's a city in northern Siberia called Norilsk. And the painting is called The Road to Norilsk. And it's just a very simple play because...
It looks like a lava.
Yeah, there's two ladders in the show, yeah. And I was reliably informed that the truck is a MAN truck as well.
Okay,
MAN brand, yeah.
You can tell by the...
But Norilsk is a city, it's very isolated, and they refer to the rest of Russia as the mainland, even though it's an inland city.
Right.
It's where these zinc mines are, but there's no actual way in and out of the city. There's no roads in or out. It's actually through air, and in the summer months then they can get there by sea. Wow. So the road to Norilsk is a very simple play. There aren't roads to Norilsk, So, and I left it this one is it's a daylight, but it's still a nice ice scene, you know.
It does have... Like all of them have this sort of winter, you know, northern hemisphere, far up north, where you've like very little daylight in the winter.
And again, it's kind of incidental, you know. It's I'm kind of lucky that the show is on in January. In one way, because I don't think it would have altered what I painted, if you know what I mean. It was the summer months.
And what is it about these billboards type structures?
It's just the strength of them. They weren't put there. This one we're looking at is the Kino Farin, Kino being cinema. So it's an old outdoor cinema. But it's very much, obviously the silhouette again with the town in the background. And again, you're being on the edge of something. There's obviously no cinema. There's nothing being shown on the screen or whatever. All the screens are blank. Again, this is kind of... Helena and I talked earlier in the residency that these apertures were appearing, and the screens become these apertures for somebody to, you know, for your own mind to kind of explore it. So
and again, these lovely streetlights that really have the glow, like as if they're on.
Yeah.
And this truck has it as well.
Yeah, but you're always somewhere else. You're a viewer looking rather than you're not actually in the scene, if you know what I mean, in a way.
And also in a lot of them, you kind of feel like you're moving. So you're moving through something.
Yeah.
You're not just standing looking at it. You're part of the movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously the two interior.
Yes, these are
pieces.
lovely. Windows are important, obviously, or an interest.
I think they couldn't be in a better place with the gallery because the windows.
Yeah,
I forget.
totally
Helena knew the name of the type of windows they are. There's an architectural term for them. I wish I could think of it right now, but. And obviously, again, I just had a love for exploring old buildings, especially when I was a kid. I don't know if you remember, on this street here, the old boot factory, which is now an apartment block. I got access to that when I was in my teens,
cool.
And oh man, it's just heaven for me to explore old warehouses and old buildings like that. Yeah. So, and it's that feel. I mean, these are very basic. They're not very descriptive paintings, other than there's a window in them.
Yeah, but there's that lovely reflection on the bottom and that.
Yeah, and again, it kind of kept with the aperture theme, so it's in the right place, and I suppose,
absolutely, yeah. The other one that I really like as well is, and you said something interesting about it when we spoke yesterday, is this little one here with the kind of light flares. There's something about that that's just so atmospheric.
It is, and I mean, the light flares kind of came to me kind of later in it. There was something, it wasn't finished for me, the piece, and it's kind of a more blurry piece. Again, that feeling of looking out through a wet glass window, or whatever. And the light flares came to me with the vehicle in there, and again, it's just a point and shoot kind of. It's not a setting, it's not a posed setting. It's a point and shoot, and often you get these light flares in photography or whatever. And again, it kind of just shows that my work is very much taken from photographs. It's lived experience, but not lived experiences, you know what I mean? So I'm just being kind of brutally honest with the light flares. There's almost a Van Gogh Starry Night feel to it or something.
Yeah, that one is definitely sort of looser than some of them, isn't it, in style? It's softer.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not intention. I didn't intend to make it a softer painting, but it turned out that way, a lot of them were quite crisp,
Yeah, they have, because there's kind of, big structures in them, it's pretty hard to make an impressionistic drawing of an oil tank or whatever.
They're not very glamorous, really. Are they? And again, it goes back to it's not a comfortable place to be. If you're standing there, if you're in these places, you prefer to be somewhere else. I think, and that's definitely always part of the feel of them. That I could be in a cozier place.
You'll have to do some summer paintings. So, in terms of going forwards, what's the plan?
Would you believe I'm just starting to think it out now? Just this gets on the wall, and I'm starting to. Again, I'll think.
Do you think working on this sort of body of paintings has sparked anything that really you're going to be driven to sort of follow down the road, or?
No, after a couple of previous shows, I went. I'm going to have to change tact, but I still love that abandoned buildings, the abandoned feel. I can't move away from that, because that's where my brain is. Where my brain is. I think what I'd like to do is actually visit somewhere of these extreme environments. I would love, and rearing a family, etc., and the day job, as we mentioned.
Honor would love a holiday in Siberia.
She'd love it, yeah. Polar ice station or something like that, yeah. So I definitely would like to visit some of these places, but again, not painting anything specific. I'm not really. They're landscapes, but I'm not going to sit too much in the landscapes. I think it would still be photography driven.
I think it would be pretty hard to paint on plein air in one of these places.
It surely would. Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, thanks so much for taking the time out to talk to me.
Not at all, and I just thanks to everybody. Helena has been really, really good, and yourself, and
she's great,
and the brilliant Tim as well.
And the brilliant Tim,
No, thanks, it's been an absolute pleasure.
It's unfortunate that we're still in a position that we can't have a proper opening, but this show is going to be open Monday to Saturday from 10 to 5, and it will continue until February the 19th.
Yep.
John, thanks a million, and best of luck with it all.
Thanks a lot, Emer.
And thanks again to John for taking the time out to have a chat about Edgelands, which is open here now at South Tipperary Arts Centre and will continue until the 19th of February. The gallery is open Monday to Saturday from 10 to 5 p.m. Or you will have an opportunity in the coming days, if you happen to be in isolation or can't leave the house for any reason, you can visit our website at www.southtip.artcentre.ie, where you will find a virtual tour of Edgelands and you can have a closer look at some of the work. If you'd like to get in touch with the podcast, the email address is southtip.artspodcast@gmail.com. That's southtip.artspodcast@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you. Talk to you all again next time.